The next question comes from Frederick in Saratoga Springs, New York. How will the WTO ruling affect the U.S. government's position on anti-gambling legislation?
Well, for the benefit of those, that's a great question. Just turned in. The WTO is the World Trade Organization, and they have just found that the United States is in violation of the trade accords that we've entered into. We are not permitted to bar others from participating in this internet use of the internet for wagering when we permit some wagering, for example, on the horse races, on the lottery, on fantasy sports, and we bar others. And we are keeping other countries from competing with the United States. Consequently, we are in technical violation, and in the fullness of time, we're going to be facing sanctions. Britain comes online with their online gambling and all of their legislative proposals to control it. England does this September. And so when you have countries like England who are going to say, wait a minute, you're not going to allow our companies to compete, you're going to find more of these trade sanctions or wars coming into place, and the United States is going to have penalties imposed upon it. So this is just the beginning. And I hope in the fullness of time my friends in the Congress begin to see that there's a better way of dealing with some of the problems inherent in gambling.
Barb from Chicago, Illinois writes, Dear Senator, I'm a senior citizen. I've been playing poker since I was 7 years old when I was taught by my grandmother. I now play poker in the casinos, but I used to play online. Since I have had 2 hip replacements, it's hard to travel to the casino. It was a blessing to play online for small amounts of money. Why can't I play online anymore?
No, Bob, you're absolutely right, and you should be permitted to. And that's one of the discriminatory features of this act. And it really flies in the face of reason. Here you are allowing throughout this country poker rooms legitimately in the brick-and-mortar casinos, whether they're Indian casinos or other casinos in Las Vegas, and you permit these games, and the state regulates them and taxes them, as does the federal government. But if you want to play in your own home, if you're a senior or if you're disabled or you don't have the ability to travel and to get to a place in close proximity to play, you're barred from doing it. This is the 21st century. The internet is part of that experience. And so trying to say that, well, yes, you can play in a casino, but you can't play at home, makes no sense.
John from Phoenix, Arizona writes, given the change of Congress from Republican to Democrat, what are the chances of passing positive legislation for poker?
Well, it's still going to be difficult because, again, it's very difficult to get people to change their positions on matters that they've already staked out a position. And there are some very influential and very persuasive members of Congress who see stopping or curtailing of gambling as something that's important for moral reasons and other considerations. And so what we have to do is to try to win the hearts and minds of some of these people by demonstrating there's a better way to control the problem gambler. And if we have them in a situation where the gambling house itself, and by the way, the internet poker parlors, they don't make money with the problem gamblers. You're not playing against the house, you're playing against other poker players, and so they want to curtail that, and we can curtail the problem gamblers. The teenage, the underage gambler, we can set in programs where you have to submit proof, etc., as to your age, identity, etc. We can require that, and we can regulate it, because every single game is recorded. And that means it is capable of being closely supervised by way of our computer programs. And so it's something easier to police than even the gambling games that take place in the traditional casinos. So can we win this battle? As a change of Congress, it doesn't really mean that much. We can win the battle. But one of the things we're going to have to do is to grow our organization. We're hopeful that we can bring the organization that now has 320,000 members up to at least 1 million members, and then activate our members to do exactly what one of our other callers suggested, writing to their legislators, calling their people, telling them that we want their active support of legislation that will permit internet poker playing.
Ed from Glendale, California asks, do you feel that the legislators will be open to changing the laws on the internet, and specifically poker, if companies who run the games agree to pay U.S. taxes?
Well, the fact is that most of the companies have already agreed that they would be willing to pay taxes, Ed, and that's a very powerful argument. And we believe that the industry would generate about $3 billion in income to the Treasury. And certainly some of that money could be set aside to see that the games are properly policed, to see to it that we have programs that deal with problem gamblers. And I think that's part of the legislation that you're going to see that Congressman Frank introduces hopefully next week.
Dawn asks, if the ban is lifted, who will see to it that poker online is properly regulated?
Well, the industry itself can, and it certainly would come under the purview of the government. And what we're saying, it is much easier to regulate internet gambling, and poker in particular, than just about any other of the contests that you may see outside of the internet or on the internet. Because, again, every single game is recorded, every hand. We went to London, and we went to the Isle of Man, where we spoke to the Treasury Secretary, and who told us that they employ computer experts that have access to the gaming houses where these games are played and where they are sent over the internet. And that it's a rather easy matter to see to it that these games are absolutely regulated, that the player gets every opportunity that is advertised, and so it's a much easier thing to regulate than to just simply try to ban and then have no supervision and have no regulation.
Michael, this is something both you and the senator might want to weigh in on. Tim from Waco, Texas asks, our local representative Jose Menendez of San Antonio is about to introduce legislation to legalize poker in Texas. If this bill passes our state legislature, it could be the start of other states following suit. What would the PPA's comments be on this impending vote?
Well, I was down in Texas. I had the opportunity to testify there at the State House. We're in support of regulated, safe places for Texans to play. There's also activities in West Virginia where there's legislation to create regulated poker there, similar to what we have in Montana, which allows for licensed and regulated poker in your local tavern or even in card rooms like California. So we're looking at the state level issues as well, but obviously the federal issues internet poker is a big issue for us to tackle right now.
Chris from Virginia asks, how has the PPA membership grown this year?
Well, Chris, as I indicated prior, we've really taken a giant step forward in the last 4 weeks. We've gone from 60,000 members to 320,000 members. Our goal is to get it up to 1 million members. Our goal is to ask our PPA players to keep them in contact with what we're doing, to identify the members of Congress for them and their senators so that they can call them, petition them, and tell them that's an important matter to them, because members of Congress do listen to their constituents, and they just haven't heard from us, and that's one of the things why we're building that grassroots organization.